AskReddit by Joe Niles 9. Which hobbies that people do screams rich people? In Sweden it's tennis. Even though tennis isn't super expensive, that's where all the millionaires their kids are. Surprised this isn't higher up. Yeah, it might not be as expensive as some of the other hobbies here, but literally every wealthy person I've ever met fucking loves tennis for some reason. Flying to F1 races. Was in London. F1 coming to Silverstone. Somehow my boss snags me tickets to take my client. Traffic will be bad, so we were to chopper in and out. My company sponsors BMW, so we were to be in pit trackside. I go to my client and he says he doesn't really like racing. Perhaps we could go to show jumping instead at Andamp, at $Andamp. I work for Porsche. Many clients have racetrack memberships where they garage their cars and have track days. $80 $90k initiation fee, $10k annual fee for some memberships. On my road trip 2 years ago, I visited Indy 500 track in Indianapolis. This coincided with some sort of Porsche track day, and my tour guide told me that all members who participated that day had to have a Porsche 911, and also buy another 911 that would be used in the event I like. Yeah, rich is an understatement. My neighbor is a yachtsman who makes a middle-class living racing rich people's yachts. So, I would say hiring people to indulge your hobbies is about as 1% as one can get. Sounds like an interesting job. He gets to spend far more time yachting than the actual owner. Polo. I worked at one of the largest polo clubs in America, and had all sorts of celebs and former presidents go there. Made great money because how some of these people tip is insane. Not usually the celebs, but the moderately rich people always have a 20. Summering. Only rich people will ask another person where they summer. Where do you summer? In my bedroom. A friend of ours got a wildly expensive cappuccino machine from his wife for Christmas. She didn't think there was room for it in their huge gourmet kitchen, so they had a whole coffee station with cabinets and drawers and a built-in mini fridge and marble countertops installed in the adjoining breakfast area. This was all because they got tired of driving to Starbucks twice a day. Oh, and they sent us home with an Xbox One the other night because they just bought whatever the new one is, X, and had no use for it. Lol, nicest people, just wildly wealthy. I had a rich boyfriend who didn't realize it wasn't normal to throw away stuff you pre-ordered just because it didn't live up to expectations. He had a 4-day-old Xbox One he was going to throw away because he wanted the PS4 more. Guess who got a free Xbox One? The fastest way to become a millionaire is to become a billionaire and go racing. I've heard the fastest way was to buy an airline. We had a meet and greet with a new executive at my company and she told us one of her hobbies is investing in real estate. Deleted. Bartender here. 2 very cute girls from out of town sat at my bar. Equally cute guy walks in. Immediately buys them drinks. His opener was, so how often do you gals boat? They were from fucking Philly lol. When he said that I couldn't not smirk at it. He also tipped me like $130 for 3 Jameson Cokes. We only motorboat when we're really drunk. My granddad belonged in a country club. My extremely affluent uncle enjoys building and flying his own aircraft as a hobby. There appear to be kits. But he has also acquired and fixed small 2-seater planes that have crashed. Friend of a friend is stupid rich, emphasis on stupid. Guy famously decided to learn to fly one day, so he bought a new plane, and not a cheap one. Apparently he got it into his head that the plane would be better with a new wiring system, so he had it rewired, to the tune of an extra 60 grand or more. Then he started the process to get his pilot's license and found out that he's colorblind, I think it was, so he just gave up the idea and sold the plane at a huge loss. Didn't blink an eye. Equestrian sports. Haute couture. And while we are at it, Sailor Moon merchandise. XD, you got me with the Sailor Moon merchandise. Going to space. Astronomical prices. Yachts and yacht clubs. I am a member of a yacht club, go sailing regularly and currently have just under 300 euros to my name. It is the exception to the rule, but it is amazing what you can do if you find the right groups. In Germany we have a saying, if you play golf, you're too poor for horses, you buy horses. If you are too poor for sailing, if you are sailing, you're probably too poor for jets and motoryachts. Historic motorsports is also a good indicator for wealth, especially F1. That's a really long saying. High-end auctions at places like Sotheby's and Christie's. Nothing says excess wealth like paying 6 figures for an antique salt shaker to add to your already inexplicably large collection of antique salt shakers. I went to my auntie's 70th birthday. She's a hobbyist pilot and longtime member of an aviation club. My partner and I were talking to one of the guys there and he asked, did you guys ever get into flying, to which we obviously replied with, no. He seemed genuinely surprised and then asked, oh, did your parents just not let you? The obscene cost of flying, owning, renting planes never even entered his mind. The only reason he could see for not flying planes as a child was a lack of interest. Pretty fucking mind-blowing TBH. To be fair, it's probably because he knows your aunt is a long-time pilot. If you have a family member who already owns and or has access to a plane, it can actually be fairly affordable to get your license. Now, I'm not saying it's an option if you're living paycheck to paycheck, but it's absolutely affordable if you're not interested in buying a house or buying a new car, taking vacations, etc. It is expensive, but not nearly as expensive as people think. Creating a secret cave filled with high-tech equipment. How does he keep his identity secret? Surely there are contractors that worked on the bad cave. And what about the guy who installed the red phone? And why are there so many minor celebrities sticking their heads out of windows in Gotham? Whole thing sound pretty far-fetched if you ask me, lol. Warhammer is basically poor person, spending 3x the money of rich person. Similarly, some people with the most blinged out Magic the Gathering decks I know have had their card declined several times when purchasing cards, and that's only what I've seen. Himalayan mountaineering. Deleted. I used to work catering at thoroughbred horse auctions. I live in KY, so these people are completely bonkers for horses. Saw a few go for over 12 mil. I actually saw a woman walk up to one while they were grooming it, drop to her knees, and weep at its beauty. Horse people are the absolute weirdest. They live and breathe these animals and it's completely insane. Unrelated, but funny, that woman got kicked pulling that same move a week later. She's fine, but there were about a million signs the next day saying basically these are massive animals and if you wanna fuck around and find out, it's not on us. That one cracked me up. Something that probably isn't the first to people's minds, but aquariums. Good God, are aquariums all about upfront investments in time, money and space, and that still doesn't 100% safeguard things from going catastrophic, to which then the typical solution is an even more absurd dedication of time, money and space to remedy said problem. They're gorgeous and can absolutely be a source of serenity for a room. But honestly, that serenity is only going to be felt by those who didn't have to put the work, planning and money into it. I'd honestly say keeping a standard 20-gallon fish tank would be comparable to keeping a small parrot, at least in terms of effort and knowledge required, and the needs go up exponentially from there. I think you need to specify saltwater tanks. Fresh water isn't more expensive than a dog. Art collecting. If your goal is to hoard as much money as possible and get the most famous Picasso for $1 gazillion, yeah. I don't have a lot of money. I love art, and I consider myself an art collector, even if it's from thrift shops. If it's not a famous name, you can get beautiful signed prints and lithographies for like $30. or buy directly from an artist you find online and like. Having more than one Lego set. Going to Africa to hunt big game. Deleted. Yacht party. With any outdoors sports like skiing, rock climbing, etc., people either seem to be rich AF or broke AF. The classic dirtbag mantra: at both ends of the income spectrum there exists a leisure class. Yachting. Collecting classic Ferraris. Collecting classic anything. Like bro, most of us trying to own any sort of vehicle, and you got people buying the 1975 version to 3x the cost of the new one, lol. Horse dressage. The money it must take to turn an entire horse into salad dressing is inexplicable. Tax evasion. Optimization. I recently went to Loon MTN in New Hampshire, which is pretty average skiing, and for a family of 4, our tickets cost $475 a day. That's almost $1,000 just in ticket cost for the weekend. On top of that, we spent a couple hundred on food. Luckily we were staying with someone, otherwise we would have to pay another almost $1,000 for lodging. We're upper middle class, and we could barely afford it. I don't understand how the mountain and lift lines were so crowded. Who can afford this more than once a year, if that? Annual ski pass 600, 1100, depending on icon or epic. Used equipment, skis, boots, bindings, poles, 500, one-time fee. Used gear 300, get a new helmet though, one time. So now you are at 2k person, roughly for as much skiing as you want all season. Have to live in SF, Reno, SLC, Seattle, Denver, Boulder or near the mountain. Now you day trip from your house, and bring a sandwich. This is how 90% of those people can go every weekend. Source: quit my job, paid above mounts, live in my van, ski every day. Hunting people. I went on a manhunt once. I just got back from Nam. I was hitchhiking through Oregon. Next thing I know there's a bunch of cops chasing after me through the woods. I had to take them all out. It was a bloodbath. At this point, see a concert through Ticketmaster. Philanthropy. I wonder how rich do you have to be before charity turns into philanthropy? Depending on where they live and how often they do it, skiing, snowboarding. Yeah, it's pretty common for people here. But I'm in Canada with easy access to the mountains though. It's still expensive, but it's a pretty middle class thing to do. Equestrian, golf, falconry, flying, and fox hunting. You just described a British person to me. GT racing, rally racing. Building a race car is expensive. The consumables are expensive. For example, a set of tires costs thousands and lasts a few laps. Rally racing has a high likelihood of crashes which require on-the-spot repairs. Related, people talking about racing on this thread should check out the 24 Hours of Lemons. Your car can only cost $500 or less, and I think you add on safety gear that's $1,000 or so. And it's supposed to be one of the goofiest races that take place. Collecting Golden Age or Silver Age comics. When I started collecting myself in the mid to late 80s there were only a handful of expensive books, mostly DC titles. A stickler for condition, would only buy it if it was near mint, NM, or better condition. At one point my collection consisted of Daredevil number 1, Spider-Man number 129, First Punisher appearance, X-Men number 1, plus Giant Size number 1, issues 94 to about 230-ish. With my last major purchase being Fantastic Four number 1, which at the time was valued at approx $1,200 in 1992, paid like $1,100. Since this would easily have been a 9.0 or better graded book, the value today would be over $250,000. plus quite a few other books that at the time were only worth between $75 minus $500. Many are worth tens of thousands or more now. Wound up selling my collection mid-90s, and although I made a profit, there is no way I could afford to be collecting on that level anymore. Had I waited and sold my copies today, I could afford to retire by selling under 100 of my books that were worth the most today. My collection when sold consisted of nearly 8,000 books. IDK, if this is technically the answer you were looking for, but just about an hour ago I saw an ad for a farmer's market in a part of town that is basically just a rich people shopping district, and it's Thursday at 8 AM to 11 AM. Nothing screams this is only for people with money than being scheduled for the time when most people work. And the fact that it had tons of white ladies commenting ready to go after brunch solidified that. To me that would scream retired or unemployed. Artifact collecting. I know an older guy who got into, and subsequently out of, crypto at the exact right moments. Last I talked to him, he's taken up a cannon hobby. I mean, what else do you do with countless acres of land but shoot black powder cannons to see how far they'll go? Whatever was going on at Little St. James Island. You know those people who fly model airplanes? Except the planes are like the size of a car, have real jet engines in them, can fly at hundreds of miles an hour, and cost like 40 grand. Yeah, that one. Warhammer 40k. Out of curiosity, why is Warhammer so pricey? I know what it is, just not understanding where the value comes from. My first boyfriend in the late 90s collected Transformers and G.I. Joes before that was a thing, and eventually sold a bunch of the collection for good money. A mutual friend said later that his new thing was Warhammer, and someone else said it was the high-grade heroin of nerdom. Any gaming hobby where you're supposed to pay to keep up, tabletop that keeps getting updated, or card games etc. Also doing cocaine once an hour everyday. New people who tried to start doing cocaine just to brag about spending money on it instead of smoking weed, which isn't as high class. They were working minimum wage jobs. LMAO. Being a mobile game whale has to be the saddest way to piss away money. Lots of folks saying golf, but I haven't seen anybody mention cycling. Sports cycling, not utility cycling to the corner store for a gallon of milk. Mid-level road bikes are now $5,000 US. And it's pretty common to spend low five figures on a complete setup. At least in the United States, the average household income of cyclists is quite a bit higher than golfers. Going on vacations to different countries and then just lounging around the hotel and pool like doing the stuff you could at home. My mom splurged to send me on my high school trip to Spain. I was so excited I participated in all the tour guide activities and didn't want to waste a minute to see museums and try amazing food plus take pics for fam. Meanwhile, my classmates from crazy rich backgrounds skipped whenever they could to sneak at a coffee shop, cigarettes, or an alcoholic drink. When that stopped being cool, they would complain about just wanting to stay in the hotel. I thought how sad it was that they were missing out on all the cool, unique things to explore. Then I realized this wasn't unique for them. Let me show you my latest senator.